Hello, I'm Clyde Wilson, teaching sports nutrition in Stanford Continuing Studies, Science 46, and I am excited to welcome Ranna, clinical dietitian at the hospital and recreationally athletic person who has three different views on nutrition, which is outpatient for healthy eating, clinical for healing in the hospital setting, and then personal for being healthy, which she knows more than enough about. But the sports nutrition piece we've been talking about for years, and how that overlaps conceptually with the need to heal, whether it's in a hospital setting or otherwise. So thank you, Ranna, for joining me for this short discussion, just to introduce the talk that you're going to be providing for the students later this quarter in the class.
Thanks so much, Dr. Clyde. Hi, everyone. I'm Ranna Modir. I work at Stanford Hospital. I work on a team supporting patients undergoing advanced cardiac surgeries, such as heart transplant and something called ventricular assisted device implant. And my talk is experimenting to create your nutrition non-negotiables. And just like Clyde said, I work in many, several different fields, and what I've noticed through my own personal experiences with sports nutrition and helping patients in the hospital setting in after surgery is that there's an overlap in terms of both subjects really have one main goal, and that is to heal. There are both stressors on the body. And so I'm going to be going into, non-negotiables that I've experimented with and had to, from my own personal life, and also what I see in my work setting, helping patients recover through surgery. So what does the term nutrition non-negotiables mean to me? And so these are really, daily habits or fundamentals, which they add positive contributions towards achieving your nutrition or metabolic goals. They add a high amount of value in terms of optimizing your mental, your physical performance, or your overall well-being. These are just basically habits that allow you to perform at your highest level. An example of this is if you're someone who struggles with having a lot of sugar cravings or being really hungry at the end of the day, the non-negotiable will be every single day aiming to get in a very filling, nutrient-dense meal earlier in the day to avoid these type of being hungry or sugar cravings later on in the day. And so the absence of these daily habits it's so noticeable. It's such a noticeable deficit in your daily life to the point that you transform them into these daily non-negotiables, meaning it doesn't matter how busy you are. It doesn't matter if you're on vacation. You derive so much benefit from these daily habits. You just make it work. You make it, you fit it in, you make it a priority, because when you skip them, it's just the outcome is just not as positive. For example, your energy levels may suffer throughout the day, or your mental acuity may be diminished when you're working in a high functioning career, or your performance at the gym or even in your training facility is going to be suboptimal. And so these type of non-negotiables are definitely not developed overnight. It can take months or years to create this toolkit and really incorporating them into your life so they stick. And most people really have to experiment to figure it out. Like what works for one person may definitely not work for you. And you really have to, continue to work through the experimental process to figure out what are the true game changers for you. Is it water? Is it vegetables? And how are you going to make those stick? How are you going to make it a priority every single day? And so in terms of nutrition and health non-negotiable variables, this is just a list of the most important things in terms of non-negotiables that come to my mind. The core foundation really being optimizing your sleep and also optimizing stress reduction. In terms of physical activity, making sure you're getting enough exercise or training that's necessary to develop and maintain that precious lean body mass or muscle tissue, incorporating enough rest and recovery in between sessions, so you're actually avoiding, overtraining. In terms of nutrition, getting enough carbohydrates, especially after that intense training session to protect that muscle tissue, avoiding both overfueling and underfueling, avoiding a ton of fast digesting carbs, incorporating more slow digesting carbs into your diet to avoid those rapid blood sugar spikes, which are often associated with increasing your appetite and decreasing your physical and mental energy levels. Ensuring enough protein in your meals. These foods are slow digesting. They promote that satiety response. They're an important substrate for lean tissue maintenance. Avoiding super low fat mode, getting enough healthy fats into the diet. Again, these are very slow digesting. They promote that satiety response, and they're essential for hormone synthesis. Getting enough hydration or water in the day, especially to account for intense exercise. Ensuring enough vegetables into your meals. These are add a lot of value. They're low in calories, very high in vitamins and minerals, and they also promote that satiety response. And so this is a long list. And the ones that are in green, I would say in my life, I've done really, really well. And with the ones in red, I've had to really work on and really experiment to find how to incorporate them into my life. And so that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today. And so I'm going to go over some of my own personal experiments with nutrition and exercise throughout the years, and how I've been able to build my own non-negotiable toolbox, and then also dive into a little bit what I see in my work setting, supporting patients to help them build their own non-negotiable toolbox, both in the short term, right after surgery, when they're still in the hospital, and long term, when they're dealing with all the side effects of medications, when they have post-transplant diabetes, when they can gain a ton of weight on anti-rejection medications. How am I helping to support them to also incorporate non-negotiables? And so that's where I'm going to review. And so when I, over 20 years ago now, when I first started learning about nutrition, I quickly picked up on the difference in carbohydrates, right? You have these quick digesting, refined carbs, white rice, white bread, bagels, cookies, crackers, noodles. I quickly saw how these carbs really didn't add a lot of value. They were super easy to overeat. They didn't have a lot of fiber, vitamins, and minerals. My diet definitely focused on all these low glycemic carbohydrates, oats, whole wheat bread, brown rice, wild rice, a ton of low glycemic fruits and vegetables. In my early 20s is when I first started to work out recreationally in a gym type setting. And this is when I first started to tweak and experiment with how my nutrition affected my training. And when I first started out, I had a very balanced mindset. I had a really good mix of high intensity, low intensity days. I didn't go over 45 minutes per workout. I was able to work out 5 or 6 days a week. And the outcome of this was I didn't feel overtrained. It was super sustainable. I didn't feel like it was negatively impacting other aspects of my life. And then about 10 years ago, I started to get bored, and I really wanted to dial things up in terms of my training. I started going to another gym, and I went from burning like 300, 400 calories per workout to 500, 700 calories per workout. The workouts were about 60 minutes. Majority of it was very high intensity training. My heart rate was over 80% max majority of the workout. It was such a new challenge. I was actually sometimes doing this twice a day. And so I drastically changed up the intensity of my workout. And at this point, I got caught up in the kind of the low carb dogma that was happening with cutting out starches, cutting out, even the oats and the sweet potatoes and the more moderate glycemic carbs that I was eating. So at that point, I was really only eating like bananas and berries and low glycemic, a ton of non-starchy vegetables. So broccoli, cauliflower, salads, all the very low calorie, low carb vegetables. And so I was working out way crazier, and my diet really cut the carbs even lower. And the type of carbs were essentially just fruits and veggies. So initially, I didn't have really any bad side effects. I was able to keep for like maybe 6 months. I was able to still go 5 or 6 days a week. I actually lost 10 pounds. I wasn't trying to lose 10 pounds. And then at the 6 month mark, I started noticing some not so positive things. From a performance standpoint, it was getting very difficult to finish the workouts. I was chronically feeling tired. I wasn't getting any stronger. I wasn't getting any faster. From a physique standpoint, it just looked like I was losing muscle tissue. I wasn't getting any stronger. And so I knew something was off. I wanted to continue to train like this, but I knew my nutrition was not where it needed to be. And a lot of my focus in my career is actually focusing on clinical nutrition. So my sports nutrition knowledge was super rusty. And that's when I had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Clyde and meet with him. And the reason why I really wanted to meet with him is because for me to make change, I really want to understand it on a cell level. Like I really want to understand the backbone and the fundamentals of it. And Dr. Clyde not only would happily do that, but he spent about 5 hours with me really drawing diagrams, explaining the physiology of everything. And so I really appreciated this discussion, because you can't just tell me to do something. I really have to understand why I'm doing it. And through this discussion, he's like, Ranna, these like carbs that you have essentially been avoiding most of your life, that your brain kind of put as garbage for so many years, they are essential and necessary for the recovery and repletion process for this crazy high intensity training you're doing. You're not only underdoing it overall on carbs, but you're not getting the right type of carbs. And you're just kind of chronically promoting this high stress inflammatory state because you're not getting enough of that refueling and that immediately post workout. And so this was really a bittersweet moment for me, because I had this in my mind. I essentially was like, oh, I wasted all these workouts were essentially just no good, because I was eating a banana afterwards, which is roughly 20 grams of carbs. And some of these workouts, had almost a 150 gram carbohydrate deficit. I was under fueling every day by almost 200 grams of carbs. And so that's when, after meeting with Dr. Clyde, I got really excited and went on to my next experiment, which was adding these carbs back in. So how am I going to refuel now that I understand they add so much value? And so initially I was very good with portion control. I tried oatmeal, I tried whole wheat bread, and I was really aiming for that 10-minute window after my training. And I became very fond of sweet potatoes. I thought they were just delicious. And I tried baby food packets of sweet potato. I ended up, I would just basically bake them. And initially, again, I was really good with the portion control. Like I would measure out, 30 grams of carbs or 50 grams of carbs. And then after a couple months, I started to move away from the portion control. I was really just, I think I was just, the mindset was, let me just get these carbs in and not worry about the portion. And I just kind of would batch cook a ton of sweet potatoes, and I would just eat them. And I didn't know if I was eating 30 grams or 50 grams of carbs. It was just completely like, there's no measurement. So again, I was just excited with experimenting, adding these carbs back in. And so Clyde gave me some really good advice. He said, Ranna, you haven't been eating these carbs for so long. You're likely very insulin sensitive, meaning when you eat these rapid or more fast digesting carbs, you might experience all the side effects of maybe low blood sugar, such as a rapid spike followed by a drop, which is associated with hunger, mental and physical fatigue. So he encouraged me to actually track all this, which is great because I love tracking anyway. I always track on my FitnessPal. I love the gadgets, right? And so through exactly what Dr. Clyde said was going to happen, it happened. I was getting all the side effects of overfueling. I moved away from the portion control. I was eating a tub of sweet potatoes, maybe 75 grams of carbs when I was not even burning that much. And so I would eat these carbs in the 10-minute window, and anywhere from like 2 to 4 hours later, my blood sugar would just tank. It would drop. And all of a sudden I'd be ravenous, be hungry, like weird hungry, where you want a chocolate bar at like 11 o'clock in the day. And then the whole day, I felt like I was really hungry. I just felt like I could not get satisfied. I went from eating like 1,800 calories to maybe 2,500 calories. And I was getting all the side effects of that mental and physical fatigue when you have these rapid carbs or too much of these rapid carbs. So I wanted to continue to train like this. I knew these carbs added value, but I really don't want to do these crashes anymore. I really can't handle them anymore. They're affecting my life, my everyday ability to perform. So that leads me to my next experiment in terms of non-negotiables. Really calling this one experiment more carbohydrate troubleshooting. So having to match my refueling based on the intensity and the training of my workout. So at this point, I got a little smarter and I started incorporating more low intensity training back into my life. So as you can see, I'm kind of coming full circle back to maybe more balance. So I went from balance to one extreme to the next extreme. And now I'm kind of recalibrating, not 100% back to what I initially started, but integrating some sort of balance to really match my current state. And so, because when I first started training, I wasn't training with doing such high intensity training. It was more moderate, like every day. So how was I going to match my carbs on my low intensity days and my high intensity days? And so this was my next big experiment that I'm currently doing now in my life. And so this, for a really crazy high intensity workout, these are my starch days. An example of workouts I might do is like sprints, sled push, kettlebells, squats, deadlifts, heavy jump rope. And sometimes I'm burning 700 calories in these workouts, a large carbohydrate deficit because my heart rate, majority of it is over 80% max. And so I'm targeting that 10-minute refueling window with essential garbage. And I now found a starch supplement to make my life easier for portion, which one scoop of this starch supplement is around 50 grams of carbs. So it took like all the measuring out for me, just one scoop. I can take, I can either dial it up to 75 grams or dial it down to 25 grams. So this really made my life a lot easier. And then I added actually a starch dose to my dinner, which I found was very beneficial for my early morning training at 5, 6 a.m. So again, I really experimented even with my meals at nighttime with adding that. And so I look at this, 10-minute refueling window, very similar to the 7 to 10 postoperative window for my patients. The more that you neglect this window, the more it's going to be harder to recover. And the same thing for my patients. The more that they don't have that adequate nutrition in that 7 to 10 day window, the longer it's going to be to recover, and they may not be able to come back from that deficit. And so for dinner, definitely incorporating like sweet potatoes or healthier starch options, and also always incorporating proteins and a ton of non-starchy vegetables. And so for my low intensity days, I consider these, my fruits and veggie day. Like I don't need a lot of starch. I'm not burning a massive deficit. I am just walking on a treadmill for 45 minutes to an hour, very low intensity. My heart rate is not getting up there. It's 60, 70% max. It's very relaxing and chill. It's like a recovery day. So focus on berries and maybe a non-ripe banana, and a ton of broccoli, greens, and cauliflower, and just kale, all the non-starchy greens. So that is really is my current state in terms of my non-negotiables, is really just matching the type of carbs and the amount of carbs based on the intensity of my workout. And so just like I do, in my own life, I also encourage my patients to experiment. The word experiment is not, it's a little bit less threatening. It's not aggressive. It's not permanent. Like I just ask them to try something that maybe they're scared of doing. And then just like Dr. Clyde did with me, he said, Ranna, try eating this starch and then take note of the positive, take note of the negative. That's exactly what I do with my patients. and see, if something positive comes out of that, can we really amplify this and see if it's something we can work on becoming a sustainable habit. And so just like I did with the sweet potatoes, I had to really try different types of carbs and portions to see which ones didn't promote that crash. And so continue to focus on the positive until we find the non-negotiable, just like I was able to do. I really want, my patients to focus on the big picture. Just like my initial slides, I was showing you how I did a lot of the things in green really well, but I was neglecting some of the stuff in red. I'm still working on experiments. Like, for example, you could be killing it on your diet, getting enough hydration and vegetables. You can, not be getting enough sleep, avoiding stress reduction. But if you're only, meeting one goal, and you're neglecting other things, it's actually very difficult to meet your goals. So in the setting of a balanced diet, for example, and if you have a very high stress life every day and you're not getting enough sleep, it's actually very difficult to lose weight. You have a higher level of stress hormones, your insulin resistance is amplified, and it could manifest in also increased triglycerides and other type of metabolic panels. So Clyde, do you have any questions?
No, go ahead and tie up with the clinical perspective on this.
Well, in terms of like when I'm with my patients?